Good morning, everybody, and welcome. Today, I'm very happy to introduce you to a person who has been very important to me and still is important for my path as a musician and an educator, and somebody with whom I had a very meaningful experience during my years of study. Today, I'm here with Tony Carnevale. Tony is a composer, producer, researcher, author, mentor, and educator. For many years, he has combined an intense and professional activity with a deep research on music as a human psychic experience, on creative processes, and on human reaction to sound, and on formative practices. Over time, this research has taken shape through numerous articles, essays, books, including Beyond Notes, Unlocking the Creative and Emotional Power Through Music, a book for which I wrote the introduction. And the book is currently in the process of acquisition at the Berklee College of Music Library, so you'll find it there soon. In the year 2000, Tony founded and taught the first laboratory of original applied music within an Italian conservatory. This was at the Licino Refice Conservatory in Frosinone. And the laboratory focused on composition for applied context, original music production, and the use of technologies. And for more than 25 years, Tony has also carried this work into the field of formative activities through the ANORA Labs, a context that I personally experienced as a student many years ago. So in the ANORA Labs, creativity is never separated from making music. Ideas are developed into complete original tracks, following the whole path from creation to realization. And what struck me from the very beginning was not this like just an alternate method or a motivational approach, but a real change of perspective and a way of thinking about music as a human language, as an expressive experience, and a relationship. For this reason, I felt it could be meaningful to share this conversation with my students and with anybody who would be listening. Before we begin, I want to make something clear that the ANORA method is not a set of rules or abstract concepts, but it's a formative practice that lives through experience. An experience that I myself encountered and understood when I took part of the labs many years ago. In this space right now, it will not be possible to actually convey that direct experience. So all we can do today is to describe its principles, give some coordinates and some entry points. And of course, deep understanding comes from the actual creative experience. So thank you so much, Tony, for being here.
Thank you, Simone. Thank you very much for the invitation, and thanks to everyone who will be following us. For me, it's a pleasure to be here today and to share this moment with you.
So I would like to start with a very concrete topic. In your work, you often speak about the creative block. It's a problem that many musicians encounter, especially when they try to move from performance to creation. So before getting into that answer, could you first clarify what does ANORA means? And then how does the ANORA method address the issue of creative block?
Well, ANORA is an Italian acronym that stands for non-rational approach. By non-rational, I do not mean something vague, but an approach that is not guided by conscious perception, notion, exercises, or technical knowledge. The ANORA method is based on a vision of music as an expressive, representative human language. A language that places imagination, inner listening, emotional reaction, and psychic experience at the forefront, and only at a later stage organizes itself, consequently, into forms, structures, and techniques. So approaching music from this perspective means starting from expressive need, from inner sound image, and from lived creative experience, rather than from abstract roots or models to imitate. From this premise, all the work we do in the ANORA Labs takes shape. Well, coming back to your question, in the ANORA method, the creative block is often the first issue that is addressed. It happens very frequently when a person moves from being an instrumentalist or a performer to the desire to create their own music. At the root of the block, in most cases, there is an idea of impossibility. That is the belief that creativity is a divine or genetic gift reserved for a few rather than a faculty that belongs to all human beings. So the ANORA method starts instead from a very clean assumption supported by modern scientific research. Creativity is a universal human faculty. And music is an expressive, representative, non-rational, and exclusively human language. A human necessity since prehistory, a way of expressing oneself through sound without having learned it from anyone, without imitating anyone. So building a wooden flute with no utilitarian purpose, just like cave paintings. For this reason, creative block does not indicate the absence of ideas, but the loss of contact with one's own ideative and imaginative dimension.
When you speak about loss of contact, what do you mean exactly?
Well, I'm referring to a model of practice that tends to privilege technique, control, and results, separating music making from the psychic experience that should generate it, a mind-body split. The ANORA method also draws from the study of the psychodynamics of creative processes and of the formative relationship in order to understand how these processes can be stimulated and reactivated when they have been lost due to negative learning experiences. It is within this framework that a fundamental point becomes clear. Music does not exist as a natural phenomenon, independent of the human being. It exists as a psychic and relational experience, as a language of human imagination. And it is within this dimension which concerns the relationship between imagination, listening, sensibility, and relationship that creative flow can be recovered and developed as an original artistic identity.
This way of looking at music is very distinctive, so where is it coming from?
Well, it does not come from an abstract theory. It comes from a long and very concrete personal path. My background was not limited to a single traditional course of study. I studied piano, composition, electronic music, choral conducting, new approaches to composition, orchestral conducting. The problem was that all these fields were separated into watertight compartments. There was no path that held them together, but that put creation, sound, technology, listening, feeling, and artistic identity into relationship. For this reason, many of the artistic and the professional activities I engage in today had to be learned independently simply because there were no integrated paths that addressed them as a whole. At the same time, I carried out an intense activity as an independent artist, producer, and composer of applied music. That work became a huge laboratory, because in that kind of situations, sound cannot be theoretical. It must work, it must produce a real effect on those who listen. And while I was making music, producing and working on commission, a reflection emerged on what happens in the human being when sound transforms from mere acoustic perception into psychic experience.
Another strong aspect of your method is the work on judgment. So, why is judgment so central?
Because judgment on oneself and on one's own ideas is one of the main obstacles to the development of an original artistic identity. In the ANORA Labs, it is one of the first notes we address because as long as judgment remains active, especially self-judgment, the creative process cannot flow freely. Very often judgment comes from the idea that one must immediately create something definitive, a masterpiece. In our work, instead, we do not start from that assumption. We do not work to create masterpieces. We work to create a track, something real, something that can be experienced, something through which both a complete sensory process and a complete realization process can take place. As it is often said in a phrase attributed to Einstein, learning is experience, everything else is information.
Wonderful. But so at this point, the natural question is, where do study technique and learning fit?
Well, this is where one of the most important passages of the ANORA Method takes place. In the ANORA Method, study is not the starting point, but a consequence. It is born from a personal expressive need. When a person has something they feel the need to express, the more their creative world develops, the more real technical limits emerge. And it is from there that the request for knowledge arises. In this process, technical realization skills gradually transform into style, not as an external form, but as a personal way of solving expressive problems. For this reason, we say that study does not precede creativity, but is born from creativity.
Well, and so this also changes the role of the professor.
Yes, Simone, because learning does not pass through information. In our method, the relationship between the mentor and the person in a learning process is a creative relationship. The creative process and the realization process are carried out together. Learning through relationships means sharing an experience, not transmitting predefined knowledge. It means entering a shared process in which the person can observe, recognize, and develop their own way of thinking and creating. And it is this relationship that makes the development of an original artistic identity possible.
Beautiful. So today we have touched upon so many questions that may open other questions about the role of the professor and the meaning of formative practices today and how to accompany somebody through a creative path. So this meeting does not aim to close the discussion but to open one, and so this could be a starting point for exploration. Would you agree?
Yes, Simone. And precisely in order to leave this discussion open, if you allow me, I would like to ask you a question. In the introduction to my book, Beyond Notes, you describes the experience of the ANORA Labs as a different kind of knowledge. A type of knowledge you perceive intuitively, beyond the conscious explanation, and emerging precisely within that working space. Starting from this idea, so I would like to shift our focus to the present. In a context where many technical skills are now easily accessible through online resources and self-directed paths, what do you see from your point of view as the main creative challenge emerging among the students you work with, and how can an approach based on relationship, on learning through relationship, and on a non-rational formative practice help, in your opinion, to develop a more authentic and conscious music practice capable of influencing the way we think today about creative processes and formative paths?
That is a great question and one that I ponder upon every semester. Yes, with the immense amount of technology we have today, you have like 10,000 snares and a million synths and then thousands of plugins, and each one promising that it's going to give you the best sound possible. So how do you pick one? And I saw in my students that this overwhelmingly large amount of options can cause two reactions. One is the creative block that we spoke about today, and one is a sense of withdrawal. Like, I'm gonna just pick one, I guess. I'm gonna just pick a sound because there is too many. So this technology overload made us connect so much with the tools, but also with all the other people that use the tool. And so now students are in comparison not only with their peers in their class, but also with everybody who is online making music. And this can be a lot because it's happening so fast and it's constant. So I guess the short answer is the main creative challenge today is to slow down, find some kind of peace, and develop sustainable and joyful practices. And of course, an approach based on relationships is the way forward, because learning through example and learning by figuring it out, by having a conversation like you and I have, we meet, we talk about music, and it's very inspiring. Learning from the need you have to express yourself is the most direct path to self-inquiry. What do I need? What am I looking for? What do I want to say? And then the knowledge that comes from there, from this method, can actually seep in and stay with you and finally serve our creative needs.
Oh, I fully agree with you, Simone. At some point, the real challenge is making time for creativity so that it can lead the process rather than being pushed aside by overload and comparison. Okay, before closing, allow me a more personal note. For me, it is a great joy to see that the experience of work and relationship we shared not only in the labs but also in projects developed together outside that context has not only remained alive but has become one of the deepest confirmations of the sense of this path. As you know, in more than 25 years of formative practice, I have worked with hundreds of people, including musicians and teachers. Many have made good use of the method in their artistic work, but only a few have managed to bring its principles into their own formative activities in a truly deep and coherent way, closer to what actually happens in the labs. I must acknowledge that you are probably the person who, among all those who attended the labs, has managed more than others to transform this formative dimension into a living and conscious practice, carrying it forward over time in your work. And if I may add the memory, when you come to the labs, we all used to call you Zimo. That was your nickname back then. And today, with a small affectionate play on words that says a lot about our relationship, one could say from Zimo to Professor Scazzocchio. Not just a change of role, but a wonderful human evolution. So thank you truly, Simone, also on behalf of the ANORA Labs. You are an example for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tony. Thank you so much for your words, and of course this has been such a joy to connect again and do this, and of course more to come. And yes, that seed that was planted was that 20 something years ago was definitely at the root of many of the choices I've made through music. It is such a profound way to go about creativity. It gives freedom, it gives the permission to actually be expressive. So definitely something worth sharing with as many people as possible. So as we mentioned before, this can be the beginning of many more conversations. And for everybody listening, Tony and I are very open to answer any questions. So our contact will be listed below in this video. Of course, the book is gonna be at the Berklee Library, the book called Beyond the Notes. And so looking forward to much more of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Simone. Thank you to everyone.